Welcome everybody. The weekly Dino wrap up. As I was just kind of saying earlier before we got started warming us up, and look at today, we're all over the place. We've been back and forth inside of the extremes quite a bit, and but basically we're respecting the initial balance in all the indexes. We're right on the top of it in NQ, which has been really whippy but fun to trade, and everybody else is just smack dab in the middle of their range. And so that's today. um, from the point of view of the VEEK, let's take a look at the ES. So this is the TPO view for ES, and give me 1 second to just rearrange all the stuff on my other monitor so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, and we'll crunch this a bit so we can just see a little bit more detail that way. Perfect. So guess what? We continue to be in this range. We've been in this is the third week we've been in this range, and it's really tight. And, we get to the extremes of it and we go back into it. Now, whenever you see this, be the number one thing that keeps coming to my mind today when I'm watching this action is be mindful of, for lack of a better term, what I'm going to call the apex effect. This is a combination, this area right here is a combination of overnights and regular trading hours. So if you kind of crunch this whole thing together, and look at what the pattern looks like. I can't do that too much because I don't have that much more data, but and I don't want to go download more data, but I'm able to make my point this way if I crunch it a bit. But I wanted you guys to see why I did that. So this is what we call an apex, and there's nothing really here down there. It's down here, but that's the bottom of the range. So you can draw it that way. That's what I'm talking about. And whenever we get those, and we get them all the time, you will get a radical break. Here's an apex here that, radical break. You will see this over and over again. Anywhere you can draw an apex, watch for radical breaks of it. It's a very common pattern because when the market is consolidating in a tight range, it does this. And the tighter that gets, think of it as a spring. It just it winds up until sooner or later, there's news, there's something, and, we either go this way really hard or we go this way really hard. And sometimes we come right back. We've seen that over and over again. Look at all these here and here and here. It's been doing this a lot. So it's just really a good idea in my world to be mindful of when we, in fact, do have apexes, because they can be very, very useful to trade. Now, of course, I can't put this back. Let's see. Hold on. Let's try that way. You gotta love Sierra chart. There we go. Okay, so you could argue the apex was just a little bit above us around 70, and that we already kind of broke it in the last 2 days. That's not a bad argument either. So the bottom of the range is in play, and 2 days ago the top of the range was in play, 4,200 and 4,100. So I think it's really dangerous and just plain silly to be drawing conclusions from the price action we're getting. And I talked to a couple of people today. You guys, a couple of you said it right when we were starting this session, and a couple of people I was coaching that came up in our conversations too. The price action today, it was, hey, guess what? It was all about momentum. And, if you get in the momentum going the right way at the right time, there's good trades. But other than that, it's just working the range, and it's doing it kind of erratically. And we're thin. Look at ES is okay, not too thin, but NQ is really, really thin, thinner than usual. The volume is low. We're not even at 1 million contracts yet. So, it's the market is digesting things. There were some talking heads earlier. We're still unclear on interest rates. Some Fed members are saying we're almost there. Others are saying, no, we need 2 more raises, So this is what the market does when there's uncertainty. And when any piece of information comes into the market that adds more certainty, that's when we'll break out of the apex. When it leaning one way, there's more power than going the other way. And you never know when it's going to happen, and you don't know what's going to do it. But it's really a good practice I've found over the years to keep an eye on these apices, these apexes, and and just really, understand that we're likely to have a really sharp move from here at some point. Is it going to occur on a Friday? Probably not. At the close, if we get a short squeeze, that could end up being it. We could, go up and take out 4,100 and go to 4,150. And, so there's a lot of dynamics of it. But if you just keep it in your mind, it can keep you from getting in trouble. And that's always important. Okay, what else did I want to talk about today? I don't think there was anything else. Again, in the weekly recap kind of portion, we do two different things here. That's the first half. I think it's really important to remember that this was the first or second, depending on which ones you're looking at, week of the bigger earnings announcements. And through the end of April, we have the vast majority of the S&P 500 reporting, and there's still a lot to go. So next week, we've got a bunch of biggies again. And so they report before the open or after the close, and that's part of this volatility. We had some reporting this morning that moved us around a bit, and it's actually been every morning this week. And also, Tesla at the close the other day. So you just have to respect that this is how markets work. And it's a perfect segue into my topic too, which I'm going to kind of go into early because there's really not much else to say about this action. Topic number 2 is about the survivability in this business, about sustainability. And JVC said a really good thing in a response to where I posted the topic. Let me go grab it real quick because that's a big chunk of it, but that's not all of it. But when I said that this is what we were going to talk about, be your own renewable resource is what JVC said. And absolutely, in fact, I would take that even a step farther. You need to be your own source of energy. And so let's talk about that for a minute. If trading is something that you really are interested in, then the following should happen every now and then. And it happens to me every day. I'll sit down at 2 a.m. and start trading and coaching people and doing classes. And the next thing I know, we're at the close, and the next thing I know, it's the open again. I mean, there's like a rhythm to it that once you get into it, it's really cool. It's easy to get lost in that and overtrade and do all the rookie things you can do. But there's also another part of that that goes with this. How can you do this for a long period of time? And I have intimate experience with this. Most of I've got some pretty significant health issues from racing motorcycles and racing cars. I broke a lot of stuff. I also have rheumatoid arthritis, which, autoimmune form of arthritis. As I get older, my joints are going to be really in trouble. And so, it used to be, and again, my point here is that this has to be kind of adaptive. When I was younger, when I was in pain and couldn't focus, I wouldn't trade. And, now I'm in pain every day. So that's not an option. So what you learn to do is be your own source of energy. That's where I'm going with this. And if you're struggling to sit at your computer and focus and execute trades on any given day, you shouldn't be there. But when it's flowing, and we've talked about this, we were talking about this a little bit before the session started. When it's flowing and you're doing well, park yourself there and stay in that flow, because that's when you're really going to make nice money. Even if you hit, whatever your goal might be, if you're still feeling that flow, you have to go with it. And so where I'm going with all this is, in my experience, the key to sustainability in this business is being your own source of energy and understanding how markets work and how the energy of the market can drain your energy and how you can feed off of it. And you have to develop a rhythm there. You have to build your life in such a way that you can interact with that market energy. Maria's here, really good example. She's got to take care of her kids and her husband and her household and her businesses. And so for her, it's really, really well organized compartmentalization and multitasking. And for somebody else, it might be something different. You might have a 9-to-5 job you have to go to. So you've only got an hour and a half at a certain time of the day to trade. And so what's really important to make this something you can do for a long period of time, which most of us, that's our mission here, to be able to do this for a living for a long time. Number one, you have to find a rhythm with the market that is consistent with your life, and everybody's different there. You can't just do what someone else does. I live alone, and I can do my polyphasic sleeping, which works great for me. I sleep in 2 or 3 hour bursts. That also solves my pain problem. I can't sleep for 8 hours because I wake up in pain anyway. Might as well get up and do something. If I was in a relationship or had kids, or that would be really hard to manage. So you have to understand your priorities. And for me, my priority is my trading business because that's what I do. And I do other things too, but my life pretty much operates around how I trade. And so to make that work is number two. You have to really be in tune with your body. And, I get up in the middle of the night all the time, but there's times when I try to get up in the middle of the night or in the morning and I can't. And, it's easy to say, oh, come on, push yourself. You got to get up and, no one's going to come save you in bed and you got to go out and do things and, all that motivation that we all have. But it's also important sometimes to say, you know what, that my body's talking to me here. Maybe I need to take a day off or sleep in for 2 more hours and I won't trade the open. I'll trade the rookie roast or I'll trade the close or I won't trade today. What a concept. And so that flexibility and staying tuned in to your body is just as important as being your own sense of energy and building it into your life. But it's kind of it's the thing that balances that. Otherwise, you can overdo it a lot. Which brings me to the third one. You have to schedule break away from trading to make this sustainable. Whether that's a vacation or it's going hiking every Saturday, I recommend both, on the weekends, at least one of the 2 days. Saturday is a good day because there's nothing happening. Sunday we reopen. So do something physical, get outside, run, get on your bike, go surfing, go skiing, whatever it is. That really, really helps, particularly if you do that on Saturday and then on Sunday, kind of review your week with a clear head and plan for the next week. So this isn't what everybody thinks it is, where if I just work hard enough for long enough and I figure out the perfect indicator and the perfect strategy and the perfect way to execute it, once I get there, then I'll be fine and I'll have time to relax and rest and go on vacation. You cannot think that way. There's no destination. There's no magic indicator. It's always about progress, not perfection. And it will always be there. 50 years in, I'm still constantly working on improving or doing whatever to make it just a little bit better. And this screen that you're seeing is actually a good example of that, because I've rearranged, as you might be able to see. And there's a really good reason for this. And I'll explain it in a minute as an example. The opposite of revenge trading. Absolutely, Donnie. That's, but that's really hard for most of us to do. We're driven people, or we wouldn't be attracted to trading. So taking yourself away from it consciously has to be part of what you do. It's the self-care. Some people don't know this, but I always found it interesting that doctors that are in psychiatry or psychology have to periodically, to keep their licenses, be evaluated by other doctors in that same field, because it's really easy to get messed up yourself while you're helping people who are messed up get unmessed up. And so you need to be grounded. You need a source of perspective. I posted that word on my Facebook page, just that word, just perspective, just to see how people would react, because I was thinking about that. And, if you think about life in general, perspective is always a really important thing. And if you're ever spinning or on tilt or things aren't working out well, taking a step back to get perspective is always a good idea. So that's a word that's really powerful, perspective. Another word I like to remember for the purposes of this exercise is the word remember. Remember something you had to do that got you where you are now that you don't want to do again. I know a guy who was an Uber driver, and not just, for spare money, but lived off of it. And then became a full-time trader. And now he's a reasonably decent full-time trader. I think he's been in full-time about 10 years now. And And the way he remembers is he used to work for $10 an hour sometimes in his Uber, or $100 for a run to the airport. And now in MNQ he can make $100 in 15 seconds if he's very patient and careful and has perspective. So for him, it's remember. That's the word he always put. Remember how I got here. What did I do to get here? And that can, in and of itself, can be very recharging, and it can also be really, really good for just helping you take a step back and say, you know what, I'm doing okay. I don't have to trade today. I could be still sitting in that Uber, or I could still be, fill in the blank, whatever job you hate, put it right there, or underpaid or whatever. You can't do what someone else is doing. Yes, this is such a powerful and significant and absolute point, Maria. It's about self-discovery. It totally is. You have to be tough on yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And, again, new people don't get this. They think, well, wait a minute, I find a good indicator and then I learn how to trade it. And then after that, everything's fine. And no, once, forget the indicator part. Once you have a good edge, the next step is managing your psychology. And it's a really hard, you'll be doing it forever. And you have to, I've talked about this in other Dino sessions, but you have to nurture your self-confidence and really be protective of that. Because if you start beating yourself up, you're never going to be able to be good at what you're doing. Even if you have a good edge, you'll never execute it well. So it's so important to stay dialed in and be critical of yourself when it's appropriate, but also be forgiving of yourself when you screw up. And, we're talking about really mature, emotional ways of dealing with really stressful stuff. And most of us don't have the experience or the training to manage that kind of emotional stress. We just haven't done it before. We have traditional school or work type job type thinking patterns. And this is different. This has to be about protecting your confidence and building over time. And it's got to be a very long game. And, anytime that's true, you have to be forgiving of yourself and you have to be constantly improving. And if you kind of sew that together with you have to be your own source of energy, you're not going to get a lot of energy from other people doing this. Most people will be very skeptical of what you do, if not outright critical of it. So, they're not going to pat you on the back when you do well. They'll sometimes even the opposite. So you really have to derive your self-worth from yourself. And that's really hard to do, particularly if you have any, the normal anxieties and self-doubts that we all do. And, some people have a lot of them, and it makes that even harder, which is one of the reasons it's so fulfilling when you actually succeed at it, because, this is a really challenging thing to do. Working in silence, that's a good one. And also I find something like Brain FM is really useful to help really, just listen to what my brain is saying, and tune everything else out with noise canceling headphones. Definitely. So sustainability, that's the overall. What are some other things about that? One that we've talked about before, and it's a much bigger topic, but it's a piece of this conversation too, is that idea that you have to separate your general manager and your trader. And, the general manager should be the business person and understanding, what accounts you're trading and what size risk to take and, when to withdraw and, the expenses that you're incurring and all that. And sometimes I find that just getting away from all of that makes it more fun again. So every now and then I give myself permission not to be too business oriented and just kind of play a little bit. I've said this again and over again in sessions. You have to give yourself permission to play in the trading world. Just find an appropriate place to do it where you won't develop bad habits. And we've talked about that a lot. You won't get support from family and friends in this space, Jeffrey. Even if you're really successful at it, they just don't understand what we do and the psychology of it. So other traders, are the most supportive place, but the reality is it's a solo game. So you really have to be focused on your self-care. And I'm doing more and more Dinos on this particular topic simply because it's just such an important topic. I find myself struggling with this quite a bit. I'll give you an example right now. I'm putting together the scalpathon. And boy, there's an interesting short right here. I'm seeing all this absorption. Really tempted to throw a little short on while we're talking. So let's see. Why didn't that show up? That's weird. It should be on this dome. I put on a trade. It told me it was filled. Oh, if Zoom is screwing me up here, I'm going to have to turn the share off, guys. Hold on. Darn. Okay, what happened there? Do I have a position? Oh, Zoom did this to me this morning. And yep, I am in a position and I can't see it. Wow. That's messed up. Hang on, I'm trying to flatten it out. Oh, crap. All right, hang on, guys. This is going to take me a second. I'm in that loop between the flattening and it's taking time to flatten them. So then I'm ending up with trades on the other side again. This has happened before and I've got to kill it at Rhythmic. So just give me a second to do it. And then Jigsaw will turn it around and put the trade back on because it's trying to flatten it out. So I got to kill Jigsaw. Okay. And Jigsaw doesn't want to close. Okay, this is fun. Sorry for the interruption. Let me just get all this shut down and then we'll. But I don't know if Zoom is doing this, but I'm having, this happened this morning too when I was in the Zoom. Like right now, I cannot close Jigsaw for some reason. Yes, I know there's orders on. Okay, now
I boot you out of Zoom.
No, okay. I just need to flatten these orders out, and that sucks. That cost me some money. Oh well. All right. I'll just leave it all off for the rest of the Dino. Anyway, we'll just let it rest. Anyway, let's see. What was the last thing I was saying? I was about to make a really important point. Can anybody put me back on topic? Before that happened, JVC, do you remember?
I don't. I'm engrossed in somebody's having some issues in the pit, and I'm trying to help them.
Oh, I got it. All right. Let me think for a second. Yeah, I was letting yourself play, but I was past that. Oh shoot. Yeah, those were all pieces of it, forgiving yourself. But no, I was making a point about longevity and doing it, and it was the last point I wanted to make, and I totally forgot what it is. Oh well. I hate distractions like that, but that's a really good example of, you can get roped into things like that. Oh, I know what it was. We were talking about where you can go for support of you can't go to your family and friends. You can't really go to other traders. It's a journey of self-awareness. That's kind of what I was talking about. And what I was starting to say is you have to learn not to measure that journey with how much money you're making at any given moment. That was the most important point. If your edge and or your execution of your edge is improving, and that's what I mean when I say progress over perfection, then by definition, you will keep getting more profitable. If you're improving your process and your execution of your process, then it follows you have to be getting more profitable, right? So over time, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy of its own. Improvement leads to process improvement that leads to profit, which you then get more confidence from, and you go back and attack your process. And if you stay in that loop and not worry on any given day or any given week how much money you're making, then it's much easier to survive in this business. The few times, and it has happened, by the way, the few times that I have just walked away from trading for 6 months or for a year, and I have done that for a couple different reasons, but sometimes just frustration. Often, physical reasons led to frustration. But when I've done that, I've always found that if I had stayed focused, and when I do stay focused on the process improvement, that's really the challenge, and that's the part that I really love, and that's the part that is really rewarding when you solve little process problems and you increase your edge just a little bit, and your profits go up by that little bit, and you're consistently now at the next level up. You're leveling up, to use the gaming term, and so you really have to, put those pieces together, the self-care, self-forgiving, protecting your confidence, playing, all the things we've talked about. But really don't focus on the money, which is really, really hard not to do. Oh, distractions. That's a whole nother topic. Yeah. I have one planned for that. I just want to do it on a day when I don't have distractions. How's that for irony? Um, I have a little booklet of Dino topics that and that's one of them. So anyway, let's just, I have to go back and recreate my platform now. So for the second time today. So let's start to wrap up. But I just want to say, everybody has different personalities, and some personalities lend themselves better to trading. If you're really flexible and easygoing, surfer dude, nothing bothers him when he's trading. It's like, it's just doing something like going surfing or going for a hamburger. I mean, it's just doing something, there's no energy there at all that's positive or negative. It's just existence, very zen. And that's cool. I wish I could get there. I'm obviously not like that. I have a lot more up and down energy, which is my point. If you're more like me, or if you have a tendency sometimes to be like me, you got to watch the downside. You can, get really crushing depression doing this, even when it's going well, just because it's so hard on your mind staying focused. I got to tell you, I still struggle with that, but at least, I'm so good at dealing with it because I have for so long. But that is a really important thing, and so you got to watch out for that. It's easy to, no matter how good you're doing, to get in a mental depression and get in a rut doing this. And so, if you have some methods, and, I said a few: get outside, do physical work, go hiking, whatever, doing things that are really good for your head to be clear. Meditating is really useful. Getting really good at meditating is really useful. We talked about Brain FM, just helping you focus or helping you relax. Find every single tool you can and put it in your quiver, because, you're really a lone wolf in this business. And most people aren't very good at being lone wolves. People are tribal, and that's why, the Furus get these big, giant followings of 100,000 people for 18 months, and then it all blows up and they go on to the next Furu. It's because people are tribal. They want leaders. Don't go looking for leaders. Look to yourself to be your own leadership. And that is massively challenging. No matter how good at it you are, no matter how successful you've been, understand that is a really significant challenge, and pat yourself on the back when you can do it and work at it. That's where where I was going with that. So, right, coming into the bottom of the hour, so that timing actually works out good. So, if there are any other comments anyone would like to add, or ask a question or follow up or anything like that, I'll give you some time to put it in the chat. Meanwhile, we are going to trade the close today. It could be an interesting one with all this craziness we've been seeing so far today. It wouldn't shock me if the close went either way, if we had a close crash or a short squeeze to the upside.
Well, we've got UB on both sides, so
and we've been just back and forth in these wicked ranges. I mean, clearly it once the momentum comes in, we go from one end of the range all the way back to the other. We've done that like 4 or 5 times today, and it's, again, really good trading. Respect the momentum, and pay attention when you get to any of the edges of the recent ranges. It sounds like it's really simple, but that's one of the ways you can really beat yourself up, is thinking, this seems so simple, why can't I do it? Because it's so simple. You've got to stay focused on that. As Jobs said, simple is much harder to achieve. It's really hard to get to simple. It's a lot of work, but when you do, boy, simple is really cool. So anyway, we will leave it there. I don't see any other. Know the bad habits that may slow down your progress. That is an awesome point. And that goes back to the idea of really knowing yourself. And sometimes it's difficult to do that. Like, I'll give you one quick example from my world. I'm a perma fader. I love fading stuff. That's my DNA. You say black, I say white. You say up, I say down. That's why I tend to like to trade fades. As a new trader, fading is really dangerous because you don't know how to fade properly enough to fade well. And I learned, God, it took me several decades, I kid you not, to understand. What I always used to do is I listened to the conventional wisdom. What's the conventional wisdom? The trend is your friend. You don't fade. So for 20 years, I battled my instincts to fade. that what I wanted to do and what everyone kept telling me I should be doing were different. And all right, these guys have been doing it for a while. They must be right. No, it was in my DNA because I see fades better. I see that energy better. So instead of trying not to do it, I had to learn to nurture it. And in order to be a good fader, you've got to be really, really careful where you do it and how aggressively you do it. And you guys see me, going through this every time I trade live. So that's a really important point. What had been identified as a bad habit by literally everybody I talked to really wasn't a bad habit. It was my edge, David. But I had to really work at refining it so that it was a feasible edge. And I didn't just, make money most of the time and then just get blown up every time I ran over, which is what you do when you fade as a rookie. And when you get good at fading, you learn where you can and cannot put up a stand like that. And you don't do it anymore. You take small losses when it's not working. And how do you get from point A to point B? You practice and it's experience. You get run over enough times, you realize, two conclusions from getting run over a lot. One, don't fade. Or two, Jeff, get better at it. and for the longest time, it was don't fade for me. And I was trading against my intuition by not fading. I was trying to do things like Maria said, everybody else had a way of doing it. It didn't work for me because it wasn't me. And so I had to learn to nurture what worked for me within the overall realm of understanding the price action in the market. And it was and continues to be quite a journey. And that's why I love it. It's, I learn something every day and it's always challenging. But I figured out enough of it, at least, that I can consistently, do it profitably. And that obviously is the most important first part. So it's only a bad habit. This is Maria. I'd like to say it's only a bad habit if you don't use it for progress. Yeah, exactly. If it needs a circuit breaker, yeah, exactly. That's so true. If you have something that is, when you make mistakes, that should be when you learn the most. That's the story there. And absolutely. I've said this in every single boot camp we've ever done. My absolute best improvements to my process and my point of view and everything I do come from the days that I screw up, because I get so angry at screwing up that I focus so hard on, okay, why did I make that mistake? And what thing in my process could keep me from making that mistake, or at least make it less often. And I really drill in on that, and that is really effective. It really works. But if I look at that and say, God, you're such an idiot, you keep making that mistake over and over again, that's just negative self-talk, and you're just drilling yourself a hole to dive into. And so you really have to learn not to do that. Great comments, guys. Really good comments. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I will see those who are joining for the closing session. Should be an interesting one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to get my platform squared away so I don't have this issue with Zoom. Maybe look at some memory maps and see what's going on, because now it looks like it's still using a lot of memory. I don't know what that's about. All right. Anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, JVC.
No problem. Catch you guys later.
Yeah, have a good one. We'll see you guys for the close. Bye-bye.